and today I'm going to be coming to you with some gait tips and tricks. Gait is one of those movement patterns that we don't even think about sometimes, even though we do it every day. The last time we really focused on benefiting our gait is probably when we were little and just learning how to walk around that year to 18 month range. And I know there's been a few years since then, and sometimes we just need to work on it again, making sure that our pelvis, our knee, our upper body is all working together to maintain a healthy gait. So two types of gait that I'm going to be talking about today are walking and running. The main difference between the two is that running, there's a time period in the air, whereas walking, you have at least one point of contact at all times during that gait. When you're running, you have a period where there's nothing touching the floor. So if you ever watched Olympic speed walking, crazy to watch. I highly recommend checking out a YouTube video. But the only like a disqualifier for them is if both feet come off the ground, because that's running. So that's a huge difference between the two, and also leads into different gaits between them. So walking, we have a heel strike when we're walking. And then we have a swing phase and then planting. So this heel strike, because we're going at a slower pace, we don't have as many forces that we're creating. Yes, we're still creating forces, but it's not as taxing of a load as running is with these forces. So in walking, we heel strike out front, have a swing phase, and come through. This form of gait, walking, that I'm talking about, it's very important to focus on these hips. So sometimes our glutes don't activate and we can get a hip drop as we walk. Maybe you've been injured before and you're on crutches and your hips dip to one side. This is very bad for your back, for your knees, for your hips, for your ankles, for the upper body. It sets you to one side. And this is hard to correct, but with little reminder, mental and physical, we can work to benefit that pelvis, that back, those knees, the hips, everything in between. So focus on that pelvis. If you find yourself, walk in front of a mirror. See if you have, it's like, I think of it as like a model walk. Do you have that model walk where you're popping your hips out to the side? Let's calm down, let's focus. Let's keep those hips in line as we walk. Yes, there's gonna be a little bit of a sway, and that's okay, but we don't want that big hip drop to the side. Thank you for letting me live out my model career. Next, we're gonna be talking about running. Hip sway is still very important. We don't want to be running and that'd be quite the show to put on if you're hip swaying. So if you have those hip issues, do some squats. Work on activating those glutes. Those glutes are your big activators when you're walking, when you're running, keeping that pelvis in a nice, stable structure. You want to work the glute max, the glute med, and the glute min. The glute min and the glute med, I know, we're always about the maximus. The glute min and the glute med are all about that pelvis support and maintaining a good structure all around here, protecting those hips when we're walking. Getting that stabilization is huge. All right, I know I said enough about walking and then I went back to it, but for running, we're really, really focused on that heel strike. If you're running with a heel strike out front, all those super duper high ground reaction forces are shooting back up through that heel, and this knee joint is getting the heavy load, having to absorb all those forces that you're creating. I know this is very sciencey and I'm so sorry, but as we bring that foot back and we strike down below, yeah, the ankle and the knee are still gonna get some force, but look, you're in a straight line, and so those forces are going straight up you, and torso all get to help absorb all that force that you're creating, because you're going at great speed here. And you're making really huge forces. You know that one Newton law of matter where every action has an equal and opposite reaction? That's what we're talking about here. So as much force as you put into the ground, you're getting back into your body. So we want to make sure that you have as much absorption as you can, because we don't want to overwork that knee joint if you're striking down here and it's taking all that heat. So you can work on it in the mirror, just going like this. Get that feeling of striking below you. It's going to be odd at first, but it will be beneficial. Strike below. Good. Maintain a nice tight core. This will benefit you. It seems like running's all in the legs, but no, you gotta support that core so you can stay straight up and down to support that absorption of the forces. If you have poor ankle stability too, this is a position where you're gonna have to work on it too, because it is taking in those ground reaction forces. So if you have poor ankle stability, it might overwork some parts of your ankle that aren't as stable and destabilize them even more, which is unfortunate. So working on just going through these motions, thinking about the ankle, and maintaining a nice, good structure. Same thing with that hip sway. Focus on that hip sway. We don't want to pop that hip out. We want a nice structure as we go. That was a lot, and it seems like way too much for something that we do every day, and I'm so sorry. But these are just some good reminders to have, so that hip sway, that striking when you're running, when you're walking, it's okay to have that small heel strike, because we're not making as much force as we are when we're running. And then lastly, that ankle stability. Those three big things I talked about today. I know it sounds like a lot, but you guys have got it. If you have any questions, always feel free to reach out. We're always happy to answer and work with you. Thank you for coming to my really sciencey talk today. I hope some of it made sense. And I'm standing with poor pelvis posture right now, being a bad example. But I hope you learned something. I appreciate you all. Have a great day.